Well, good day. My name is Don Swager. I'm actually filling in for Dr. Mandy, who has the day off. It's great to be with you. Now listen, hold your seats. You're going to be super excited because we've got probably one of the greatest speakers that I've ever met in my life. I'm a little biased, I know. I've done him for some time now. Bobby Petrocelli, it's great to see you again after 27 years, buddy. Can you believe that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been speaking for 30 years. I'm in my 30th year, so this is my 27th year being here. That's unreal. We met, and the rest is history. Not only have we become great friends, but I love coming to Frostburg every year. The students are great. The response is great. And, you know, I just really enjoyed it. Plus this time of the year, come on, it's so beautiful. The changing of the leaves and, you know, coming through Cumberland and just coming out here to Frostburg is absolutely gorgeous. So love coming back and love the students, and their response is always overwhelming, and I'm very appreciative.
Well, we always appreciate you coming back. You know, it's hard to believe that you've been at Frostburg State University for 27 years. So besides the leaves and other things, what keeps you coming back?
That's more than a quarter of a century. A quarter of a century.
Hard to believe.
It is.
Hard to believe.
I mean, it's wild when I think about it. And I've been coming, you know, the pandemic year we did a little virtual, but still, it's still the impact. And it's great to see this campus, the people's response, and it's a beautiful campus. It really is. And just see, you know, even me seeing some of the changes and the new buildings and the new facilities and the updates just over the 27 years. It's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, well, there's a buzz in the air. We've had a couple of students come into the office, and you know, we're kind of doing a little promotion for Wednesday night program, and some student was, you know, aware of it, so that's always a good sign. So hopefully the cold will not keep the students away, because listen, you're in for a real treat. If you've never heard this man speak, you'll want to come out Wednesday evening, and we'll give you some more details later on in the PAWSCAST. Hey, I'm just curious, you know, a couple years ago, you wrote a new book, You Matter, It Doesn't. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and about the message? You know, why is it that this message is so simple, but yet so profound? Why is it resonating with a lot of young people across the country?
Well, the reality is everybody wants to, you know, I tell people our biggest fear is a fear of rejection. Not being loved, not feeling valued, not feeling important, not feeling you matter. And the reality is everybody wants to feel they matter, they count. They bring something to the table. And the reality of the book title, You Matter, It Doesn't, Leaving Your It Behind, every one of us, Don, have an it. Something that has happened in our life that has hurt us, that has wounded us, that has broken us, that has traumatized us, that we have felt rejected, unloved, unaccepted, unimportant. And usually it starts, not that people have done it even on purpose, it starts in family issues and people's interpretation of their family and somebody else's family. And then bullying can come out of that. And whatever. The reality is everybody's been hurt, wounded, and offended. And the sad part is, like I always like to say, is that hurt, and we'll leave it that simple, that hurt, that brokenness, chases after us to define us. And that broken place where it took place is the it that we want to get rid of and get it out of our life, because that's not who we are. It's what happened, or it's a mistake we have made, but it doesn't define who we are. So I like to tell my audiences all the time, you're priceless, you're one of a kind, you're irreplaceable, you're unmistakable. There will never be another you. And then I say very simply what you've heard me say to the audience, so will you be you? Because everybody else is taken. And I'm not put on this earth to be anybody else. I'm put on this earth to be me. And one of the very simple analogies, how I like to bring it out is, I'll pick on, whether it's a high school or a college student, I'll pick on a young lady, and I'll say, let's pretend I'm a student here at Frostburg, okay? And we're both freshmen. And I see you, and we're from different parts of the state of Maryland, or maybe you're from Pennsylvania, I'm from West Virginia, which I don't have a West Virginia accent. But the point I'm getting at is, I'll say to the student, or I'll say to her, I'll say, I've had this major crush on you. And you know my biggest fear is the fear of rejection. So I'm willing to go down even the wrong path just to gain your acceptance. And the wonderful thing that I get even from students in the past here at Frostburg and other schools around the nation. I mean, literally, I've spoken almost 7,000 times in 30 years to more than 5,000 colleges, 600 high schools, 600 middle schools, and a little of everything else. And the reality is, the fear of being rejected drives us many times to make poor choices. And the greatest compliment that I get, and I say this very honored, is, wow, you know why by far that's the best prevention program we ever heard? Is because you don't just come and tell us, no, 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 don't. You show us why we're going down the path we're going, what's influencing us to make those decisions, to make those bad decisions. And like I like to tell people all the time, those bad decisions is very simple. All we're trying to do is anesthetize the it, anesthetize the pain temporarily, because we're not obliterating it and getting rid of it. You know, and it's like the simplicity of it is leaving your it behind. I tell people that drive, I said, what happens if you drive and the whole time you're looking in the rearview mirror? And they understand it. I'm going to crash, I'll hurt myself, I'll hurt somebody else, I'll change lives forever. I go, bingo. Life is no different. If you're living in your it, it's no different. You're hurting yourself and you're going to hurt others emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically, because that it is controlling you, defining you. And you're going to do anything you can to self-protect, to self-medicate. And there's very many forms of self-medication, you know. And I always tell people, any bad choice and decision usually comes out of the root of that brokenness. That's why I always talk about getting that broken heart healed, you know, and not just anesthetizing it and temporarily healing it. And think about this, and I don't say this in a rude way to anybody, but 99% of the time, when a person has a headache, just pick on that, and they take an aspirin, the aspirin numbs the pain for the moment, but did we really get after the root of why you had the headache in the first place? It helps you at that moment. And I think what happens in life, that's a prime example, and there's nothing wrong with having an aspirin, please don't get me wrong. But the reality is, how many things in our life emotionally do we almost just take an aspirin for at the moment instead of getting to the root of why we feel, think, act, react, say, choose, and do the things we do? That's what's important. That's why so much of my program is going after the whys behind the whats.
You know, the one thing that I've really appreciated over the 27 years that I've known you, developed a great relationship with you, and have heard your story over and over again, is that, you know, obviously your original story hasn't changed, you know, but I think what's really fascinating is the additional stories that you get to share over the years. When you share your story, when you share your pain, you know, students feel free to open up. And I just love the fact every time that you come back, you usually have a different story about how someone came to you after the program and shared their story. And then, of course, you get permission.
I just had a bunch of those things happen over the last week because I was in Virginia, in the western part of Virginia, in Lynchburg. And then I was in Texas. And just a response, which I always say they're very honored. I'm honored, I'm honored, I'm honored when people thank me or they say kind words to me or they say, that changed my life. And there's a precious girl who, I'm not only going to share this story tomorrow night, but she came up to me in Virginia last week, and she was just like crying right away at the end. And she said, I was sexually molested, abused, and raped when I was younger. And I've been getting counseling and getting the right help. But the way you packaged it and presented it tonight, it just seemed like it clicked and made a lot of sense that I want to be completely healed of that and completely overcome with that. To overcome it, that it doesn't overcome me and overtake me anymore. Because you know what? I've been living over these years like that's who I am. And what was wrong with me that somebody did that to me? You know? And I always say to students more than ever, I'll say, if I mistreat you right now, if your first two responses to me mistreating you are, what did I do wrong that Bobby's treating me that way? Or what's wrong with me? Then I tell those students right away, Mr. Swagger, I tell them, you need to get that healed because you're still letting how somebody treats you, talks to you, acts or reacts to affect you in such a deep way. And it's controlling you. And it's controlling how you see yourself. And you're letting other people dictate who you are and how you see yourself. And that's what we want to help people to get over. Because, you know, we talk about this. You know, I didn't wake up this morning and look in the mirror, and all of a sudden my nose started to speak and say, you know, I'm sick of being the nose. I want to be the mouth or the eye or the ear or the chin or the teeth. No. The nose has its own responsibility, just like on any team. You know, we're all part of the same team. That's why I ask people all the time, even in my program, I say, what's your favorite sports team? And, you know, they'll tell me their favorite sports team. And I know, and please forgive Mr. Don Swagger, but I'm still confused. He grew up in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and he's a Dallas Cowboy fan. It's surprising, Mr. Joe, he got out alive. Trust me.
Somebody's got to do it.
My family's from Pittsburgh originally, so I get it. You know, they moved to New York when my dad was 10, but he's originally from Pittsburgh. It's like, I understand the toughness of Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. That tough, you know, that tough genre of that city, and I'm thinking, how the heck? You know, but you know what? You know why we can relate so well? Here's what. I grew up in New York City, a Boston Red Sox, because my uncle played for the Red Sox. So we joke about that. That's just like one of the commonalities we have. Is like we grew up in this area, but no, we were a fan of the Steelers' biggest rivalry, and I was a fan of the Yankees' biggest rivalry. Which is funny, you know, to grow up and my friends would always, oh yeah, your uncle stunk last night, he struck out. Really? How about the night before you hit a grand slam? You know, and I just actually found out recently that he's in the top 3 in Red Sox history of the most grand slams. I never realized that. Pretty cool to find that out about your uncle, so.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we have you reserved in your favorite room, the Atkinson room.
Yes!
Over in the Lane Center, and just want to announce to everybody that everybody's welcome, whether you're faculty, staff, students, the community as well. The event is absolutely free. Bobby's going to be speaking Wednesday evening, October 19th in our Lane Center, the Atkinson room. And, you know, we just hope that we can pack the house, because if you've never heard this speaker, I promise you, you'll first of all enjoy it, because he's got a really creative way of not only sharing his story, but adding some really cool humor in between those moments, and of course he's adding some other stories to it. And so I just personally want to challenge you and encourage you to come out and hear his presentation. You will not be disappointed. And so as we begin to kind of close out this particular podcast, and again, Bobby, thanks for taking your time to be with us. I'm always amazed, you know, you've been here 27 years, but we have some folks on our campus, they've never heard you before. So could you look into the camera and encourage them and challenge them, maybe for the first time, you've been here 27 years, but they haven't been able to get out for whatever reason. No judgment, but can you look into the camera and just kind of encourage them to come out, and maybe why it would be worth their time?
Well, to every one of you, just as my shirt reads, you matter. As they say in New York, yous matter. As they say in the South, y'all matter. And as they say in Pittsburgh, yins matter. We want you to know how much you matter. But here's the reality, and I'm just going to cut to the chase, and I'm not being arrogant. I am honored, and I never get tired of sharing, you know, as Mr. Don Swagger said, I share a portion of my story. I've shared it more than 7,000 times. That's not even counting TV and in books and in other stuff. That's just personal appearances. That's not even counting virtual stuff and tapes and videos. I'm just telling you right up front. I'm not being arrogant, I'm being honored to be here in the presence of Mr. Swagger, to be in the presence of one of his associates and helpers, Joe, to really just tell you, I promise you, I ask this one question towards the end of every program I have ever done, and the response is unanimous. And I ask them in the audience, I'll say, did I say at least one thing that really spoke to you or rattled you or really got to your heart and made you think differently or want to think differently or go down a different path? If I said at least one thing that really hit home, raise your hand. And pretty much 99.9% of every hand goes up. And I'm honored to say that. I don't say that arrogantly, because that's my goal. I may never see you again in life, and maybe for that short time, that hour, I've said something that all of a sudden it got you down a different path. And you know what's so cool, which I love, is many times over these last years, programs I do around the nation, like there's been people from Frostburg, heard me in Frostburg, they became an educator, teacher, coach, counselor, and all of a sudden they reach out to me and say, hey, could you come to my school, speak to our sports team? Or I'm working at this college, could you come here? That means the world to me, because then you know there was a connection and there was something that impacted them. But I don't say that arrogant or rude. I promise you, you come tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in the Lane Center, you will walk away with at least one thing that will truly impact your life. And I'm a firm believer that, you know what, every day we have opportunities for something that can truly impact us. And it's, do we tune into it or do we not? And I'm a firm believer when we have these opportunities. And there's a reason why Mr. Swager's been bringing me here for 27 years. And just even his wonderful, kind introduction means the world. But know you matter. It doesn't. Our goal is to help you to leave those it's in the past where they belong and be done and obliterate them.
So I noticed you got some new merch. Okay, you always have your wristbands and so forth.
Which I still have my Humana wristbands.
And you got a new shirt here. And are you going to bring some tomorrow night for sale?
I'm bringing some tomorrow night, and I will sell them. And here's the deal: I have a few books with me. I have a ton of wristbands and these shirts. But here's the thing: after I get the money and I pay for what it costs to get this stuff produced and done, this is the honest truth. For the last 14 years, of those 30 years, we give the money at other times to different things. But the main part of this money. I've been part of an organization out of Texas called Life Outreach, and for 14 years we've been part of rescuing kids sold into human trafficking. And can I tell you up front, in 14 years, every $64 we raise, it's always matched. That rescues one kid sold into human trafficking when you think about the money. And over the years, I figured it out. This is what blows me away. I figured it out. We have been part ourselves. They have rescued a total of about 250,000, but just for what people have done in getting merchandise and other stuff, we have been part of rescuing about 5,000 or 6,000 kids.
Wow,
which is pretty
that's
amazing.
Awesome. So, how much are the shirts, the books, the wristbands, so that we can kind of prepare people to?
Usually wristbands. Usually, let me say this: I always tell people you can make a donation, but usually what helps is like people for the book will donate a minimum of $10, sometimes $15. The wristbands, they'll donate $1 or $2, and for the shirts, usually they'll donate $15 to $20, but usually $20, and that helps because it helps us pay for the shirts, and then it helps us. When I tell people, think about this: 3 kids, 3 kids. Well, we'll make it 4 because we take off some of the price of the shirts, but 4 people make a $20 donation. And basically, they've contributed to rescuing one kid that life will never be the same again. That's what's awesome, because to me, it's what do we leave behind when our legacy is done and over with. And one of the things I say to people, and I'll finish with this last point: everybody whose life is touched by anything I've even said now, or will be touched by what I do tomorrow night or the last 27 years. And Joe, you'll understand this, okay? He doesn't make this happen. He doesn't bring me in. They don't hear the voice. Even today, Joe, thankful to you. You don't set this up and do your part to make this happen. The people who can be touched just by watching this or may show up tomorrow night, you don't do your job. We don't get to do this. They don't get to hear it. That's why they may not see you and hear you or recognize you, but you're just as important of getting this message out because of your part and you being part of the team. That's the one thing I tell people I personally love about Tom Brady. Put everything else aside, is the fact that he would reach in his own pocket and take care of offensive linemen and receivers and backs that were, say, not making the same money, like sending them and their family on a vacation or buy them a car or whatever. And let's say he's making $35 million and they're only making $500,000. Still phenomenal money, but big difference. And he figures, let me help give them something extra. Well, he understands. Without them, he can't do it. And when I used to coach high school football, when my quarterbacks got cocky and arrogant, I always told my offensive linemen, You're not blocking for him on the next play. Let's see how good he is without you blocking. And we would snap the ball, they would fold their arms, he would like, and then run off the field, timeout. What do you want to tell the guys? I know, coach, it ain't about me, it's about we. That's right. This is a team effort. And, when programs like this, and I get to do this, I'm always so honored because there's amazing people that you become, like a close brother, like an amazing close friend over these years. But yet, you've been so instrumental in impacting so many lives and allowing me to have that part. They may not hear you up there speaking and sharing, but you don't bring me in and you don't work with the school to make it happen, they don't hear it.
Well, hey, we're about out of time, but once again, I want to remind our listeners, and whether they're watching or listening to the podcast, that Bobby Petrocelli, National Motivational Speaker, is going to be at Frostburg State University tomorrow evening. That's Wednesday, October 19th, in the Lane Center Atkinson room at 7 o'clock p.m. You won't want to miss it. I promise you, you'll have a good time. He will inspire you. He will encourage you. He'll motivate you. He will challenge you. Your life will never be the same. I promise you. I never get tired of hearing his message. Listen, we appreciate each and every one of you, whether you're listening to the podcast or if you're watching it on video. We'd like to hear from you, so please feel free. At the end, when the credits roll, you'll have some information about the PAWSCAST, about our office. The things that our peer educators are doing across campus are phenomenal. If you want to become a part of that, we'd really encourage you to become a part of that. And so, hey, I'm Don Swager, filling in for Dr. Mandy. Really appreciate you being here today for episode 10. And it was a little bit different. Thanks for hanging in there with us. And hopefully we'll be back next week as well. So keep up the good work. Bobby, thanks for being with us once more. Look forward to seeing your presentation
Yins
again.
matter, yins matter,
Absolutely.
you matter, we all matter.
All right, very good. You heard it, from the boss. You matter. Take care.
Thank you for being a part of our PAWSCAST. This Health and Wellness podcast is brought to you by the Prevention Center and the Peer Education Network at Frostburg State University. If you would like more information about our programs, visit us in Pullen Hall 109 or call us at 301-687-4761. Or you could also send us an email at safeoffice@frostburg.edu.